Good morning, welcome bright and early to today's edition of the Breakfast Club. My name is Toya Singh, and today on the show in the next hour, we're actually going to peel apart the layers to a very, very complex story. India's semiconductor story, what recent announcements mean for the country, but we're also going to really break down for you the basics of semiconductors right here on the show. Very quickly, let's go to the headlines. Let's take a look. First, India drops its first Made in India chip. Global giants sign deals at Semicon India. The Prime Minister calls semiconductors digital diamonds, and India steps into the global chip race. But what does any of this mean, and what does the road ahead look like? We take a look. Okay, Para-Olympian Pooja Ojha live on TBC. She's India's only para-canoeist, and we ask her a little bit about how she first got into the canoe, how she decided to become an athlete, and her words of inspiration for sports people across the country. And after that, in conversation with Juhi Parmar, after 4 years with Kahani Har Ghar Ki, Juhi returns to television screens. She expresses views on long working hours, among other issues. Okay, let's first bring you up to speed with everything that's taken place in the last few days. At Semicon India 2025, you had the Prime Minister, the IT Minister showcasing something India had till then never seen before, a chip that was made fully in India. Usually, this is a process that requires the coordination of multiple countries. Now, this chip is called Vikram 32. It's been designed by ISRO's Semiconductor Lab. It's tough enough to power satellites, rockets, defense systems, and this moment was also used to pitch a bigger idea that India shouldn't just make chips, it should also own the design, the intellectual property that powers them, and that's where the real value in a semiconductor lies. The government says that India now has 5 units under construction, pilot lines are running, a series of deals with global giants, Indian companies are all in play. They also say that students from IITs and NITs are bringing their own chip designs to the stage, and that you can sense this energy building around this space. We thought it was the perfect time on the show today to break this topic down for you further. So, first we'll understand the overview, we'll get you a picture of what this entire story looks like from the top, and then we'll break down and take to our second guest some very basic questions. But first, let's go over to Neil Shah, the Vice President of Counterpoint Research. Neil has a sharp eye on where India stands globally. Neil, good morning. Thank you for joining us here on the show. Neil, first tell us, India's first indigenously developed Vikram 32-bit chip was presented essentially at Semicon India. Now, is it a baby step? Is it a milestone? How would you look at it?
I think it's one of the milestones and towards a lot of other milestones which would happen over the next 5 to 10 years. Building a robust semiconductor ecosystem to build all these chips which can go into multiple different applications, right from space and defense to your smartphone, to your TV, to your car. So we are still in a very early stages, and this is still not as advanced processor or a chip, but still it is a progress for the nation, where we are building this, fabricating and designing and fabricating all and packaging all in on the Indian soil.
Okay, Neil, just break it down for our viewers in simple terms. Why was it so important for India to build an ecosystem around semiconductors at home?
Absolutely. So if you look at since 2015-16, we have been pushing for Make in India initiatives, and through which what we have done is we have started manufacturing one of the most popular and high value goods, which is like smartphones, right? Now 100% almost in India, and that too not just at high level manufacturing, but it's more of very detailed manufacturing, which is called completely knockdown, CKD, where we put all the chips on the PCBs and we procure chips in a raw, and we completely manufacture a phone from ground up. Obviously, we don't manufacture chips, so that was the next stage of the phase manufacturing program which government has envisioned. So we have this strong base of building finishing products, whether it's smartphones or automotive, PCs, as well as wearables, and in future data centers or servers, right? So we have this end finished good ecosystem, but now to have this finished good ecosystem grow and easy for all the component manufacturers which are supplying hundreds and thousands of components for building these products, they also need to be around the manufacturing facilities. So, and most of the components which goes into these electronics products are semiconductors, are the chips, right? So chips and displays are one of the biggest contributor to the overall cost of the device. And if we don't have chip fabs, we are importing those chips. And what has happened since pandemic or during pandemic, there has been a lot of supply chain issues which we know of, right? And semiconductors was the one thing which was in shortage. And that has exacerbated across the economies to be self-sufficient on different semiconductor components manufactured in those locations. So there is diversified production and supply chain. Earlier it was not, because everyone was dependent on either Taiwan, Korea, or China. So there was no China plus one or Taiwan plus one strategy for any component vendors or any finished good vendor.
Okay, so let me just explain to our audiences, because you use the word fabs there. Any place that is manufacturing semiconductors, we refer to it as fabs. And I just want to ask you, right now in India, the question of advanced fabs, advanced manufacturing units existing. Tell us a little bit about it and where India is in that process.
So right now, what all the fabs which are being set up, whether it's the logic or chip fab, or whether it's a memory related chip fab, right? So memory related chip fabs are more advanced, but it's more on packaging side at this point. We are just packaging the final chip, a wafer. So that is a good first step. And as we move forward, as we have more domestic consumption, we'll see more advanced fab for memory. Then you come to the logic, which is the compute part where the processing happens, right? So those advanced fabs are not here in India yet. But what we are building are smaller scale compute processors or chips, or the camera sensors, which will go into different products. So that is what will build a strong foundation to start with. And as we have this rich ecosystem of suppliers, infrastructure to support all those, we might attract bigger players like TSMC or Intel or Samsung to come and manufacture the advanced chipsets in India.
Such a big part of all of this is incentives, and I just want to understand from you, compare the ecosystem right now in India to other countries like US and China and the incentives that are given out. How would you compare them for our audience?
I think it's a very good scheme in terms of government offering almost 50% in outlays, and with some states offering an additional 20%, like you see with Micron, they're getting almost 70% of capex covered, right? Which is huge. And some states will offer land or electricity or some discounts to the different fab players. And compared to other countries, I would say it is slightly difficult to compare because everyone has a different way of offering incentives. It's not apple to apple comparison, but still, if you look at it's the best right now at this point. Obviously, there is US Chips Act, which has attracted the advanced fabs like TSMC and others as well. So I would say we are not there yet when it comes to attracting advanced fabs, because those requires even more funding.
Okay.
This 70,000 crore won't do it, and that would be, I would say, second, third phase. I don't see government even rooting for it at this point because we don't have that level of infrastructure ready yet, and ecosystem as well for the advanced gases or last mile supply chain and so forth.
Okay.
So I think so far so it's good, attractive to bring alternative China plus one, or if you say Taiwan plus one or Malaysia plus one when it comes to packaging.
Let me ask you a different question, a more fundamental question. If one were to ask you, why is India having to play catch up at this speed at all? Where did we miss the boat in the past? How would you answer them? What decade, for example, would you take the story back to?
I think that phase was obviously in like late 80s when we had our first fab
Yeah,
in Mohali
right. Famously, yeah.
Semiconductor Laboratory, SCL, which was quite advanced at that time. And that time there was no TSMC or so forth who was even thinking about it. And China and Taiwan were way behind. And US and Japan, actually Japan was the most advanced at that time. And I think if we would have not face the wrath of nature when the factory when the fab burned down, right? And that was one of the biggest uh, I would say impede for our semiconductor mission at that time. If you would have done that, then we would have way ahead of, like, similar to Taiwan. But again, it's history. The, another phase would have been when there was a dot-com era, and we would have thought about upskilling our universities with more of IP creation with respect to learning about semiconductors, learning about other computer and everything. We got there, but we got there a little bit late, and we became more of outsourced, cheaper labor outsourced economy for software services rather than building those fabless companies, communications, chipsets, and so forth. So most of our intellectual property was not being developed for last 2 to 3 decades, and now we are realizing that we missed the boat.
So semiconductors also stand right at the heart of the AI revolution. Can you tell us what you see as the road ahead for the nation?
I think it's not a sprint, but it's going to be a marathon for us in the semiconductor journey, and also in subsequently AI journey as well. So if you look at the overall semiconductor ecosystem, right, many of these companies, leaders like Qualcomm, Intel, AMD, Applied Materials, Lam Research, they have been in India for almost a couple of decades or more than that, right? And they have their biggest or the second largest design center, R&D center in India.
Yeah.
So we have innate talent of our engineers, which are English speaking talent, which are not that expensive, and we have built products, we have designed chips, we have designed products for the world. Only thing is, the intellectual property has been with these foreign companies, and the talent is aligned or attached to these companies. We have not built up a startup ecosystem where many of these cutting edge products, designing engineers have started their own companies, chipset companies or semiconductor companies. So there have been a few stories which we are seeing right now with many indigenous companies working on with push from the government and under India semiconductor mission. So I think from the overall value chain perspective, we are there. In design, we are strong. Only thing which was missing was manufacturing. So that is coming up now slowly. So over the next 10 years, you will see India becoming a complete 360-degree semiconductor hub, from semiconductor design to even consumption of those semiconductors with the country for domestic consumption and for exports.
Okay, tell us this question of what the next 10 years will look like. If India could lead the chip race, if that's a pipe dream, how do you answer it?
I think it all depends on a couple of big players. If they come in, if India is able to attract, then I think we should be good. Or we develop a indigenous company which can compete with likes of TSMC, but that will take at least a few years. So I would say we have been late, but at least due to the geopolitics and everything, it's working in our favor. And everyone wants to have a China plus one strategy. And the only destination available right now in terms of cost, talent, experience and consumption is India.
All right, lovely to have you on the show, Neil. Thank you for explaining the broad picture. Now, we had promised you, our audience, that from this, we're going to bring you some basic answers too. So, Colonel Anurag Awasthi joins us. He's the Vice President of the India Electronics and Semiconductor Association, IESA. And he works very closely with the government and industry on policy, collaborations, and the roadmap ahead. Hello, Colonel. Thank you for joining us here on the show. Colonel, if we could actually come to you with quite a basic question first, okay? We know that this is a basic question, but we really want to break this topic down for viewers. If someone stood in front of you and asked you, semiconductor mein hai kya cheez? Why is it so complicated? You know, we've always said India has the most brilliant engineers. Why is this such a complicated piece of equipment to crack? How would you answer them?
Firstly, I was the vice president of IESA. I'm no longer the vice president of IESA. That's one. Let me start.
I'll describe you instead as ex-vice president, but yes, do go ahead.
All right. Okay. So the first thing is, when you're looking at a semiconductor chip, you are looking at everything that powers from a safety razor to a space shuttle. You must understand that. So that is why what happens is the entire criticality of the small microcircuit, which a small thing, when you're looking into a nanometer paradigm, which has hundreds of kilometers of cabling, which is miniaturized, can be put into anything that you use, which is usable on a daily basis, to anything which is strategic. That's why the most important part of anything in the world today is the semiconductor chip. Now, having said that, this is an era of AI. When you're looking at the AI, when you're looking at ML, when you're looking at large language models, various other things that you're looking at, you will require all these chips for a simple reason, because A, you require the miniaturization, second, you require the form factor, third, you require the speed, and fourth, you require the consumption part of it. So that itself makes it the very, very important piece in any technology in the world, and becomes the prima donna of anything that you intend doing in technology, whether it is, using your small little credit card or debit card, or using anything in your car, whether it is, any kind of a system. If you're using anything into an automotive, drive and transmission, whether you're using anything on your appliances today, whether you're using anything for your entertainment, whether you're using anything for your wearables. I mean, it's touching your life from morning till night till you sleep. And of course, you have your phone that we all glued to, right? So that is the biggest disruptive technology in the last 35 to 40 years. In fact, I also must tell you, the other day, I was speaking to somebody, and I was seeing an old, advertisement of Radio Shack. Radio Shack, as we know, is a very, very important, technology store in the United States. And the ad was of 1983 or 1984, which gave out 8, 9, 10 appliances that, this is a Christmas sale, and this is for so-and-so dollars, and this is for so-and-so dollars. And lo and behold, you realize all of them are in the palm of your hand today.
In one.
In one. So just look at the kind of disruptive technology that a mobile phone has created. And what's powering it? A chip, right? So whether you like it or you don't like it, it is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. So what happens is that till you yourself are making them, till you yourself are packaging them, till you are yourself not Atmanirbhar and plugged into the global supply chains, as we go forward, I'll explain to you. I think there's a little, sensitivity in terms of technologies. It's a sensitive thing in terms of geopolitics. And it's a very, very sensitive thing in terms of your own security and your own, well-being insofar as your country is concerned. So that is why the primacy of semiconductor chips.
So, Colonel Awasthi, I want to ask you, if someone has been following the semiconductor story, one of the pieces that is so integral to it is what you talked about already. This idea where we're told that making one tiny chip, I can't even obviously make any hand gesture because nothing is small enough, but making one chip requires such a high level of interglobalness, because there are pieces of technology, for example, that only the Dutch possess. There are pieces of technology that you can only find in certain countries. I just want to ask you, is true Atmanirbharta in something like this ever actually possible?
See, that's a very fine question. See, what happens is you have to look at the global, digital chessboard, as I call it. Now, let's look at the digital chessboard. You have three basic, issues when you make a semiconductor chip. Let me break it down a little more simply for you. The first is the equipment. Obviously, you require the equipment to make the chip, right? The second thing, what you require is packaging it. That is how you package it. The third is you require the material, whether it is, the rare earths, whether it is the chemicals and gases. And by the way, there are nearly 150 plus chemicals and gases which are made to, which are required to make these chips. Now, most of them are let's say, not very stable. Some of them are pyrotoxic, and it's a very complex maze. Now, let me break it down further for you. Most of the equipment that is made to make the chips is made in the United States today. Some part of it in Japan, some part in Korea, right? When you're looking at the packaging part of it, most of it is done in Asia. That is, you're looking at China, you're looking at Malaysia, you're looking at Philippines, and all of that. When you're looking at hardcore fabrications, that is the fabrication facilities, again, you're Asia-centric. Korea, you're looking at Taiwan, of course, it's the global behemoth with TSMC sitting there for the last so many years, since 1987, since Morris Chang, unveiled it to the world. And then, of course, when all of this is done, you have the supply chain issues in terms of chemicals, gases, materials, and so on and so forth, which are scattered all over the world. In addition to that, as you rightly mentioned, you have the ultraviolet and extreme ultraviolet machines, which are there under a particular setup in the Netherlands with the ASML, and which it has its entire hegemony over it. Now you just look at this. Now this is the kind of mosaic that you're looking at to make one single chip, right? Now add on to this a pandemic which happened, add on to this, the conundrum what is happening in Gaza, or what is happening today in Ukraine for the last 3 years, add on to it what has happened in the initial part of this year insofar as the conflicts are concerned, which disrupt supply chains, which disrupts trade, etc., etc. Now you tell me, isn't it a heady mix? Now, how do you do that? So, there is no one country which is making the entire technology end to end. That is one. The second thing is, it's a common joke, I must tell you, that each chip takes a circumnavigation of the entire globe 3 times till it reaches you. It's an old book, actually, which I tend to believe it is true. Now, if that is the case, now this technology and geopolitics become a part of the same coin. They are both sides of a single coin. So this makes it very, very complex. Now, let's come down to the chemicals and gases. Looks very benign, very, very benign. But imagine a gas which you have to harness, then you have to store, then you have to cart, then you have to move it through the sea. Obviously, it can't move by air. Then you handle it, then you move it back, then you store it, then you use it as per your shelf life, then you destroy it, and then you use the various SDGs or various issues of sustainability. Just look at that chain. It is so complex. So that is the problem, where the entire country has now galvanized together. And as the Prime Minister, he said it very clearly, you need to become a full stack. It was a very profound statement which the Honorable Prime Minister made day before yesterday on the inaugural address of Semicon India. He said, India has now got to become a full stack. When he said full stack, he said harness design. He said get into fabrication facilities, look at materials, upscale and upgrade for chemical requirements from parts per million to parts per billion, and then only you will get these famous digital diamonds.
Break it down for us though, like we're children. Are you saying that India has now set the goal to do what you said no other country has done, which is create the entire chip at home domestically? And what degree are we achieving that with Vikram 32? Because lots of trolls, lots of people on the internet saying, "Arey, ye to matlab ye kuch bhi nahi hai." Compare what the global practice is right now, where global semiconductors are. This is just a milestone on a much longer journey.
It is. It's a very, very single waypoint on a very long trajectory. What you're saying is spot on. But the whole idea is, well begun is half done. That is one. The second thing is, a lot of people, I think the previous speaker also, Neil, I think he mentioned about, the high-end advanced fabrication facilities, etc. Now, see, then to get into this famous nanometer paradigm, we must understand one very simple thing, right? You have to cater to your own markets first. Why are we looking at things which will be very futuristic, and you are looking at technology which you may aim to look at around 10 years from now? What are your markets today? Your markets are automobile, your markets are industrial equipment, your markets are wearables. You're the number 3 in the world in the manufacturing of automobiles. You have a large market, so why do you need to look at only these high technology chips only, which as it is a very high, not very high population, right? Which can be bought off the shelf but by a particular price. So you have to cater to your own markets firstly, because it's a business case, right? Finally, it's a business case. I mean, nothing happens in oblivion without a business case. And the second thing is, why do you need to get into this journey in a entire, a sprinting manner? It's a marathon. And while a lot of people may say, it's generally gets into a naysayer's world that, oh, we missed the boat. Oh, we are very late. No, we are not late. We are just delayed. We're just delayed, and we're just catching up. And I don't think there's any major issue in terms of, looking at things in a very, very negative kind of a manner, which a lot of people I see writing, as well as speaking in a couple of forums. I don't think it's very negative. The way the strides you have made, imagine, the Indian semiconductor mission was essentially unveiled in December of 2021. The policy was tweaked in October 2022. So let's take it from October 2022. And what is this? We are in September 2025. 3 years. 10 facilities sanctioned, 76,000 crores, syllabus changed, right? Chips to startup also incorporated, chip in center made, your PLI looking at your production linked incentive and your fabrication and your advanced packaging and your packaging facilities and your discrete semiconductor facilities. You're looking at DLI, looking at design ecosystem. You're looking at C2S for your startup ecosystem. You have Chip in Center, which is going to be working along with the SCL. SCL is on the verge of, getting upgraded. So, I mean, in 3 years, what else do you want? Right?
Okay.
I think I'm a little positive insofar as all this is concerned, and I think it's an outstanding step taken by the government.
Colonel Awasthi, I just have a minute left with you, so I want to ask you one last question. The 3nm or the 5nm chips, the nanometer chips that we talk about in the global conversation, are you telling me that India's goal is to end up creating that kind of technology? Obviously, maybe 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line. First, give us a timeline. What do you think the timeline would look like? And I also want to understand, like the Dutch technology we were talking about right now that is so advanced and so heavily protected, is India's plan to then come up with technology that can compete with that? Just break that down for us.
Right. Two questions. One is, I'll take the second one first. We spoke about the Dutch technologies or the ASML, as you mentioned, on the ultraviolet and the extreme ultraviolet machines. Why do we need to start from scratch in this? It's an era of collaborations, and you've already seen the CEO of ASML has been in India, and he's been interacting with a lot of people. In case we are, as it is, in touch with so many other friendly foreign countries, we have binding MOUs with them. So why would you want to, start from scratch? That is one point. So if you can collaborate, why not? Right, that is one. The first part of the question. Now you're looking at
for Atmanirbharta's sake, though. That's my question. Like, how do we, you know what I mean? How do we decide how we want to approach that concept?
The Atmanirbharta concept will also be functioning mostly on collaborations insofar as critical equipment is concerned. The design part of it, I think we will have to cater for ourselves. What suits us and what is our market. But in terms of the peripherals, in terms of the equipment part of it, it's an era of collaborations. You'll have to do that. Everybody's doing it. Everybody. So, and no man is an island here in this world. So, collaborations is the key. That is why you see a lot of MOUs being signed, even as we speak today in Semicon India. And of course, the government-to-government binding MOUs which have been signed. Now, coming down to your 2 nanometers and 3 nanometers and 5 nanometers. I again reiterate to you that, I can't give you a timeline on it. Why? Because, technology as a discipline is very pervasive. Now, let me take 30 seconds and explain to you. You must see that great photograph of, Texas Instruments getting its first machine in Bengaluru in the early part of 80s. You would have seen that, in 1985, if I'm not wrong. So there's this machine which is coming and loaded on a bullock cart. Lo and behold, 45 years, you are the home to 20% plus designers of the world. Did you plan for it? No, it's pervasive. Look at, Maruti. Maruti came, I still remember, I was a young kid, when Maruti Suzuki came in India, right? and the famous Maruti Suzuki 800 car came, it was a rage all over the place, right? In 40 years, did you ever realize that you will become the third largest automobile manufacturer in the world, and with Maruti Suzuki still having the biggest market share? So that's technology. So you can't say when, at what time, 5 years, 10 years, 7 years, very difficult to, put a timeline on technology. It's pervasive. The way it goes, you don't know, you don't plan for it. But yes, it just, it's a domino effect. Technology gives a domino effect, and how it goes, one doesn't know. But yes, on a very somber note, if you ask me personally, I think when you're looking, it's a very personal view. But if you're looking at these, critical edge 5 nanometer chips, or, you're looking at 3 nanometer chips or what have you, I don't think that we'll be able to make them personally till as late as 7 to 8 years from now. So it will take a little while, but it's a work in progress. But if it happens earlier than that, good. If it happens late, so be it.
As you said this earlier, this is a milestone in a longer journey that we have to do. Colonel Awasthi, it has been wonderful to have you. Thank you for listening to each of our more basic questions, breaking it down for us, for our viewers. Thank you for joining us here on the show. Okay, let's take you, our audience. We hope that was comprehensive for you. We hope you had some takeaways, but we're taking you into the break. And on the other side, we are shifting focus entirely. Para-Olympian Pooja Oja joins us live on The Breakfast Club. She's India's only para-canoeist in Paris. And she breaks down her journey for us. Who supported her on the way? She tells us about that, her fear of water. Yes, she was afraid of water at some point. And she tells us a little more. So stay with us for that.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
There's big breaking news. The GST Council meeting has concluded, and we have some preliminary information that we can share with you, which seems to suggest that there has been some amount of consensus amongst the states on the fact that they have agreed to 2 basic slabs. So the 5% and the 18% slab will kick in. This is what the centre has proposed, and there seems to be some amount of consensus building on that. There are a couple of states that have problems. Jammu and Kashmir also has said that this could lead to a lot of losses in revenue collection, but that's what we're being told. And there's another slab which is much higher, set for Singh goods. What those exact goods will be, we'll let you know in a few moments, but it could typically mean tobacco and other items. But viewers, this would mean a massive reset. And I want to try and go across to Pallavi Ghosh for more on what she's learning as far as outcomes are concerned. So there's 5%, 18% and a 40% for Singh goods. Pallavi, what can you tell us about where various goods are going to be slotted, and how much will this actually help the public?
So Rahul, there was earlier 4 slabs. That was 5, there was 12, there was 18, and there were 25. That has been done away with. So now there are going to be only 2 slabs, which is 5 and which is going to be 18. Now in 5 are going to be a large number of consumer articles that I think we are going to get to know this in detail in a short while from now, where the finance minister is going to be briefing us. But the 5% slab is going to be applicable on, for example, oil, ghee, the spectacles, geometry box, pencils, which is seen as an Aam Aadmi kind of material, and that is where the 5% slab comes in. The 18% slabs are going to be on, say, automobiles. It's going to be on mobile phones, your laptops, your LED TVs. So basically what it's going to do is 2 things. One, you're going to give a pep up to the manufacturing sector, because they are going to get a lot of hope that they are going to be able to make sales. And of course, the benefit of all this obviously goes to consumers like you and me, where the goods are going to be much, much cheaper. And as you correctly pointed out, there's something called a 40% sin slab, which is on products which are considered to be hazardous to health, for example, tobacco and pan masala, but it also includes certain segments of liquor. It also deep luxury items, which I think the finance minister is going to spell out for us. The only hitch, and which is why this GST Council meeting, which lasted a little late, though frankly speaking, it was supposed to last till tomorrow, but I think they managed to reach an overwhelming consensus. It was politically very difficult for even the opposition ruled states to have an objection to it. The hitch was on compensation. For example, the Karnataka Chief Minister Siddaramaiah has gone on record to say 15,000 crore rupees is a kind of a revenue loss. They demanded, and that is why this meeting got delayed. They demanded we want a certain amount of compensation. That has been rejected by the centre. The whole idea of compensatory cess has also been completely done away with. But apart from that, there are states who also wanted, for example, the GST, state-level GST to put on certain items which are not covered under GST like petrol, alcohol, real estate. That also we are being told by our sources has not been discussed. So the countdown to the big GST landmark announcement is going to begin anytime now. Even as we speak, Rahul, Nirmala Sitharaman has just about entered the media center where she's going to be addressing us.
So a Diwali bonanza is what the Prime Minister had promised. If you remember, a few weeks ago from the ramparts of the Red Fort on Independence Day, Pallavi, now we're being told that these new GST rates will kick in on September 22nd. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes,
is that
that's
true?
right. That's when the Navratra period also begins. That's when auspicious period begins, where we all buy new goods, new stuff, and therefore that slot has been chosen. You know, one more worry, Rahul, which I really need to address, is that there was a segment of worry among the manufacturers.
Okay, let's now take you to stories that are taking place in India and across the world right now. First, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman addressing the press. This was after the 56th GST Council meeting on Wednesday, announcing that the Council had cleared the centre's proposal to streamline the indirect tax structure into a dual slab, 5% and 18%. Remember, this is the announcement that was made by the Prime Minister from the ramparts of the Red Fort. The Yamuna River in the national capital has breached the 207-meter mark on Wednesday for the 5th time since 1963. What that means is that homes in the area were submerged, shopping goods were destroyed, and traffic was disrupted in several areas of the city. And Argentina's officials said on Wednesday they had recovered a painting stolen decades ago by the Nazis following days of international intrigue and raids. This is to track down the portrait after it was spotted in a real estate photo. The local prosecutor's office in the coastal city says Argentina's prosecutor will soon reveal more about the painting. And we take you to Algeria, where villagers continue to preserve a centuries-old craft, harvesting salt by hand from a high-altitude natural salt lake. For locals in this region, about 250 kilometers east of Algiers, working at the salt pans is more than just a livelihood. It's a blessing passed down from ancestors. Just take a look at these gorgeous visuals. And New Yorkers and tourists packed stores on Wednesday ahead of the $1.4 billion Powerball jackpot lottery. Tourists also wanted to test their luck. Locals had their own dreams. For others, fantasy took center stage. Tickets selling fast. Players are hoping their number will unlock the $1 billion prize. And in a huge announcement, American Vogue has now announced Chloe Mal as its new editorial boss. She has succeeded Anna Wintour, who's led the magazine since 1988. Remember, Wintour is credited with turning the Met Gala into a global spectacle, but some have called Chloe Mal's appointment as more nepotism. Okay, we are shifting focus now from this story to something entirely different. This morning on The Breakfast Club, our person of interest is Para-Olympian Pooja Oja. Now, India's only para-canoeist at Paris 2024. We thought we had to sit down with her, understand more from her about her journey. So let's just go over to her to ask her the questions for The Breakfast Club. Pooja, it's so lovely to have you here on the show. Tell us about the early years. What was it like growing up? आप भिंड में, I think आप भिंड से हैं. Were there very few sporting facilities? वहाँ पे sporting facilities की कमी थी क्या?
मैं पैरा कैनोइंग से हूँ और 2017 से मैंने स्टार्ट किया है मैडम. वहाँ पे जब शुरुआत हुई थी तो वहाँ पे इंटरनेशनल बोट्स नहीं थी, पैडल्स नहीं थे, लेकिन
आप हमेशा कहते हैं कि आपके पिता आपको बहुत इंस्पायर करते हैं, कैसे इंस्पायर करते हैं उसका बताएंगे आप?
मेरे पापा ने मुझे इंस्पायर ऐसे किया कि उन्होंने मुझे बोला कि ठीक है, तुम्हारा मन है तो तुम कर दो, मैं तुम्हारे साथ खड़ा हूँ। आर्थिक, मानसिक और फिजिकली सारी उन्होंने मुझे सब तरीके से सपोर्ट किया। मेरी माँ ने, मैं आपको बताऊं, मैं जब छोटी थी तो मैं स्कूल नहीं जाती थी। मतलब मेरा स्कूल जाने में मेरे को बुरा लगता था कि अदर बच्चे जो होते थे वो मुझे देख के ऐसे हंसते थे कि कोई अलग व्यक्ति आ गया है। तो मेरी माँ मुझे जबरदस्ती स्कूल भेजती थी और बोलती थी कि मैं तुमको टिफिन दिलाऊंगी, मैं तुमको नया ड्रेस दिलाऊंगी। हम 6 भाई बहन थे मैडम, तो 6 भाई बहनों में मैं छोटी, सबसे छोटी हूँ। तो उस जमाने में मतलब बच्चों की पढ़ाई लिखाई उतना नहीं था, हम मतलब मिडिल क्लास फैमिली से हैं। पर मेरे लिए मेरी माँ सब कुछ करती थी, मेरे को टिफिन पे और देती थी। मेरा भाई मुझे छोड़ने जाता था स्कूल, मैं रोते रोते स्कूल जाती थी। और मैं क्या करती थी, जैसे मैं 5th क्लास में थी तो मैं 1 क्लास के बच्चों के साथ बैठती थी। क्यों? क्योंकि वो बच्चे छोटे होते थे और मुझे देख के कुछ बोलते नहीं थे। एक बार क्या हुआ था कि मेरी मम्मी ने मुझे स्कूल भेजा और मेरे क्लास में मेरी अटेंडेंस लग रही थी, तो मेरी माँ बोलती है कि मेरी बेटी गई है, लेकिन मैं 1 क्लास में थी, बैठी हुई थी। तो मेरी जो टीचर थी वो भी अच्छा सपोर्ट किया उसने, वो मुझे लेके आई, तो उन्होंने बिठाया, उन बच्चों को बोला कि ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता। तो मेरी जर्नी, फिर उसके बाद मेरे पापा ने मुझे भोपाल भेजा। तो जब मैं भोपाल आई थी तो मेरे पास सिर्फ मतलब आर्थिक प्रॉब्लम थी, तो पापा ने मुझे कर्ज लेके भेजा था और मुझे बोला था कि बेटा तुम मतलब कुछ अच्छा करके आना। पापा ने मुझे बहुत सपोर्ट किया, माँ ने भी सपोर्ट किया, पापा ने भी बहुत सपोर्ट किया।
पूजा जी, हमें ये भी बताइए, पैरा कैनोइंग आपने कैसे डिस्कवर किया, कैसे हुआ ये?
मैम मैंने 2017 में स्टार्ट किया था, भिंड जिले से स्टार्ट किया था मैंने। और अभी तक मैं चल रही हूँ। अभी मैं भोपाल ट्रेनिंग कर रही हूँ और मैं अभी इंडिया पोस्ट में पोस्टेड हूँ, मुंबई में।
हमें ये भी बताइए, बहुत ही कम समय में आपने इतनी सारी मेडल्स जीती हैं, आपको मोटिवेट क्या करता है? आपका मोटिवेशन कहाँ से आता है?
आपको बताऊं, मैं एक साधारण सी लड़की थी जिसको बोला जाता था कि आप हैंडीकैप हो तो आपकी जॉब जल्दी लग जाएगी, सरकारी नौकरी जल्दी लग जाएगी। तो इस तरीके से मैं कोचिंग जाया करती थी। तो जब मैं कोचिंग जाया करती थी तो मैं बड़े बड़े पोस्टर्स, होर्डिंग्स देखा करती थी। तो जिन पे नाम होते थे, मतलब जैसे कि हमारे उस टाइम पे जब मैं मैच देखा करती थी बहुत ज्यादा, तो सचिन तेंदुलकर, ये जो देश के लिए कुछ करते थे, इनका नाम बड़ा था और ये अपने टेलीविजन हर जगह इनके पोस्टर्स और इनका देश के लिए इन्होंने कुछ अच्छा किया है, ऐसा देखती थी। तो मेरे मन में एक आता था कि मैं भी कुछ ऐसा करूं देश के लिए, ताकि देशवासी मुझे जाने और मैं देश के लिए कुछ कर सकूं। मेरे मन में ऐसे ख्याल आते थे और मैं जाती थी। तो ऐसे ही देखते देखते, हमारे बिंदले में तालाब था, मैं देखते देखते वहां से निकलती थी। तो उनको लगा कि वो जो वहाँ पे कोच थे वो मुझे देखा कर रहे थे कि ये लड़की पानी देखते हुए जाती थी। इस तरीके से मेरे मन में आया। फिर वहाँ पे एक कोच थे, उन्होंने मुझे देखते थे, उन्होंने बोला कि आप करोगे क्या? तो आपको बताऊं, मैं सबसे क्या बोलते, पानी से सबसे ज्यादा डर लगता था मुझे। मैं ना छोटा सा गट्टा बारिश में जो भर जाते उनके पार भी नहीं जाती थी। तो जब उन्होंने मुझे बोला तो मुझे एक ऐसा लगा कि मैं कैसे करूंगी। फिर मैंने सोचा नहीं है, मुझे अपने देश के लिए कुछ करना है और अपने लिए जो इंडिया के लिए इंडिया लिखता है टी शर्ट्स पे, तो वो जो फीलिंग आती है ना, वो मुझे फील करनी थी और मुझे देश के लिए कुछ ना कुछ करना था। इसलिए मैंने खुद को बहुत, मतलब ये समझिए बहुत सारी प्रॉब्लम्स आई मेरी लाइफ में।
हमें ये भी बताइए कि कनू स्प्रिंट ट्रेनिंग में सबसे आपके लिए मुश्किल क्या पार्ट है?
सबसे मुश्किल चीज मैडम होती है बैलेंसिंग करना उसमें। तो पानी का गेम जैसे है तो उसमें क्या होता है, महीने लग जाते हैं हमको बैलेंस करने में बोट को। फिर उसके बाद हम रिदम पे आते हैं, थोड़ा थोड़ा सीखते हैं। और बोट भी बहुत महंगी मैडम, हमारी बोट कम से कम नहीं 10 समथिंग आती है। हमारा जो पैडल है वो भी 65 से 70,000 अभी तो हो गया है। तो मेरे लिए ये अफोर्ड करना बहुत मुश्किल था। तो मैंने जब स्टार्ट किया था तब मेरे पास कुछ भी नहीं था, लेकिन अभी मेरे पास हमारे फेडरेशन ने मेडल बोट्स भी हैं, मेरे पास पैडल भी है।
हमें ये भी बताइए कि रेस के पहले आप काम अपने आप को कैसे रखते हो? आप अपने आप को अंदर से कैसे क्या बोलते हो जिससे आपका जो मानसिक संतुलन है वो बिल्कुल अच्छा रहे, ठीक रहे?
पानी तो डर लगता था, लेकिन जब मैं पानी में गई और जब मैंने पहला मेडल जीता तो मैंने खुद को ऐसा फील किया कि शायद मैं भी कर सकती हूँ। और डर के कहते नहीं है कि जिस चीज से डर लगता है, जब हम उसके पास जाते हैं तो सारी मतलब हिम्मत रखने की जरूरत है थोड़ी सी। हालांकि शुरुआत में डर लगता था, लेकिन अब नहीं लगता। और काम का देखिए मैम, सुबह मैं मुंबई में हूँ, तो जब कैंप होता है तो मैं यहाँ से लीव मेरे को मिलता है, मैं मुंबई से भोपाल जाती हूँ। और आपको बताऊँ मैं अकेले ही रहती हूँ। सुबह के 5 बजे स्टार्ट होता है मेरा जर्नी। सुबह के 5 बजे अपना जगने के बाद मतलब सारी चीजें करने के बाद जो दिनचर्या होती है शुरुआत करके, फिर मैं 6 साढ़े 6 बजे ग्राउंड जाने के बाद प्रैक्टिस करने के बाद 10 बजे तक घर आके फिर ब्रेकफास्ट बनाना, फिर ब्रेकफास्ट मतलब जो घर के जो काम होते हैं वो सारे करना, और फिर उसके बाद रेस्ट करके थोड़ा सा फिर खाना भी बनाना, और फिर शाम को फिर जाना। मैडम एक तरीके के कह सकते हैं कि मैंने खुद को बहुत मुश्किल से इन सब चीजों में एडजस्ट किया है।
हमें ये भी बताइए कि आप जब भी ब्रेक लेना चाहते हैं इतना सारा ट्रेनिंग से, आप क्या करते हैं? आपका क्या कोई फेवरेट खाना है, कोई मूवी है जो आप देखना पसंद करते हैं?
मेरा फेवरेट हॉबी मैम शॉपिंग, नए कपड़े जो साइज से मतलब कहते हैं कि देखिए कहने की बात है। देखिए मैं मिडिल क्लास फैमिली से हूँ, मेरे 6 भाई बहन थे। तो हालांकि मेरे माँ बाप ने मुझे सबसे ज्यादा प्यार किया है और सबसे ज्यादा मतलब जो भी चीज होती थी मेरे लिए ज्यादा लाते थे, लेकिन मेरा एक सपना था कि मैं अपने पसंद से अपनी कमाई से मतलब शॉपिंग करूं और अपने शौक पूरे करूं। तो मुझे वो ज्यादा पसंद है। तो अभी मैं वो सबसे अच्छा लगता है मुझे अपने लिए भी और अपने दूसरों के लिए भी शॉपिंग करना। मुझे आपको बताऊं, मुझे दूसरों के लिए शॉपिंग करना ज्यादा अच्छा लगता है। मैं मेरी फैमिली के लिए मैं ही शॉपिंग करती हूँ, और मेरी फैमिली में सब मेरी ही पसंद की मतलब ज्यादातर चीजें मतलब पसंद करते हैं।
हाँ। हमें ये भी बताइए, अगर आपके पास जो यंग एथलीट्स हैं देश भर में, उनके लिए कोई मैसेज है कि क्या कोई चीज़ है जो आप उन्हें कहना चाहते हैं?
देखिए मैम सही बात है, यंग एथलीट्स के पास क्या ना, मेरे पास अभी इतना टाइम नहीं था जब मैं शुरुआत की थी। मैं 31 कुछ ऐसी 31 32 होंगी। लेकिन यंग एथलीट के लिए मैं जैसे हमारे देश में प्रतिभाओं की कमी नहीं है। मतलब उनको सिर्फ अपने आप को तराशना है और उनको जानना है कि वो खुद देश के लिए कैसे और खुद के लिए कैसे कर सकते हैं। तो एक कह सकते हैं कि लंबा टर्न होगा उनके पास, और हमारे देश को ओलंपिक्स में मेडल, जैसे कि अभी पैरा में 29 मेडल आए थे, और मैं चाहती हूँ कि अगले 2028 में इसके डबल आए। तो यूथ मैं भी कोशिश कर रही हूँ कि अपने देश के लिए ओलंपिक्स में जाऊं और मतलब बेहतर प्रदर्शन करने की कोशिश करूंगी। हर खिलाड़ी का सपना होता है कि वो ओलंपिक्स में मेडल ले, जिसके लिए हमें मतलब डबल से डबल मेहनत करनी होती है। तो मैं यूथ को कहना चाहूंगी, उनके पास सब कुछ है। और हमारे देश में हमारा देश अंदर कंट्रीज में कम से कम नहीं 16 कंट्रीज गई हूँ, लेकिन मैंने देखा जितनी मेहनत हम करते हैं उतनी वो नहीं करते। तो इसलिए मैं कहूंगी कि अपने फोकस मतलब हमारा जो गोल है हम उस पर फोकस रखेंगे तो हम अपने देश को जरूर डबल मेडल दिलाएंगे ओलंपिक्स में।
पूजा, आपसे बात के बहुत अच्छा लगा. थैंक यू हमारे लिए समय निकालने के लिए. आई होप आपको बहुत मेडल्स भी मिलते हैं, बट ऑल्सो आपको शॉपिंग करने का बहुत सारा समय मिलता है. We're gonna head into something slightly different now. Let's take you into an exclusive conversation with CNN News 18's Shosha. This is Chirag Sehgal, and he sits down with Juhi Parmar. They talk about her comeback on television after 4 years with the show Kahani Har Ghar Ki. The actress also expresses her views on long working hours on television and calls it the quote safest industry. Take a look.
Hello and welcome to News 18 Shosha. My name is Chirag Sehgal and joining me today is actress Juhi Parmar. Thank you so much, Juhi, for joining us. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very well. How are you?
Very well. Coming back on television after 5 years. When you hear this term comeback, kaisa lagta hai? What do you feel about it?
First of all, it's not 5, it's 4. And I just feel that there is no need of any such word like comeback, because there is no need to continue working non-stop also. Taking breaks in between is a personal choice. And for me, it was not about choosing a role on television or OTT. It was just about, am I liking what I'm doing? And I waited for the right show to come my way where I would want to be a part of it. And television is a longer commitment. So when you commit to a show on TV, you know that you are dedicating yourself to a very long period of time. So yeah, thinking before saying yes is a must. And I took my time, and I'm very, very happy that there couldn't have been anything better to be back on TV, not looking at it as a comeback.
But you have also taken up hosting duties with this new show Kahani Har Ghar Ki. How did this happen?
So this show happened because it had to happen, honestly. This show is my manifestation in true sense. This is an example that I can tell people that you can really get what you dream of. Because in different ways, I have been itching to do something where I will be able to help people, especially women. And my team, who closely works with me for my social media, they know about it, that I have been sitting and brainstorming different ideas with them. How can we do this? Where my podcast, which came on my own social media channel, that was also a part of this thought only, like trying to do something in this direction.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
There's big breaking news. The GST Council meeting has concluded, and we have some preliminary information that we can share with you, which seems to suggest that there has been some amount of consensus amongst the states on the fact that they have agreed to two basic slabs. So the 5% and the 18% slab will kick in. This is what the centre has proposed, and there seems to be some amount of consensus building on that. There are a couple of states that have problems. Jammu and Kashmir also has said that this could lead to a lot of losses in revenue collection, but that's what we're being told. And there's another slab which is much higher, set for sin goods. What those exact goods will be, we'll let you know in a few moments, but it could typically mean tobacco and other items. But viewers, this would mean a massive reset. And I want to try and go across to Pallavi Ghosh for more on what she's learning as far as outcomes are concerned. So there's 5%, 18% and a 40% for sin goods. Pallavi, what can you tell us about where various goods are going to be slotted, and how much will this actually help the public?
So Rahul, there was earlier 4 slabs. That was 5, there was 12, there was 18, and there were 25. That has been done away with. So now there are going to be only 2 slabs, which is 5 and which is going to be 18. Now in 5 are going to be a large number of consumer articles that I think we are going to get to know this in detail in a short while from now, where the finance minister is going to be briefing us. But the 5% slab is going to be applicable on, for example, oil, ghee, the spectacles, geometry box, pencils, which is seen as an Aam Aadmi kind of material, and that is where the 5% slab comes in. The 18% slabs are going to be on, say, automobiles. It's going to be on mobile phones, your laptops, your LED TVs. So basically what it's going to do is two things. One, you're going to give a pep up to the manufacturing sector because they are going to get a lot of hope that they are going to be able to make sales. And of course, the benefit of all this obviously goes to consumers.
Next, we bring you a special section on financial markets powered by Money Control Pro. Money Control's premium healthcare, metals, destination for investing in business insights. Let's take a look first at an overview of the markets where GIFT Nifty is indicating a very strong start for Indian equities today. You have GST rate cuts announced by the government to lift sentiment. US equities ended mixed last night as tech shares gained and Asian shares rose today morning. Crude oil prices were down. This is as OPEC is considering another output hike. But let's take a look now at a particular sector. GST rates have been cut on a number of products, right from items of daily consumption to discretionary and even commodities. Costs for companies as well as consumers are likely to decline as a result. If they pass on benefits to the end consumer, it should help revive consumption. In turn, a surge in domestic consumption could help revive the private capex cycle. You can log into Money Control Pro to find out more about India's retail sector and other actionable insights on the market. It's the premier destination for all investing views and financial insights you'll ever need, brought to you by Money Control. Okay, and with that, we are drawing our show to a close. Thank you for staying with us through the show.
So you've seen the big arc lights here, the flashy cameras, but beyond all of this, journalism is all about hard work. So if you have it in you to make a name for yourself in this hyper-competitive industry, then let CNN News 18 be your platform.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
There's big breaking news. The GST Council meeting has concluded and we have some preliminary information that we can share with you, which seems to suggest that there has been some amount of consensus amongst the states on the fact that they have agreed to two basic slabs. So the 5% and the 18% slab will kick in. This is what the centre has proposed, and there seems to be some amount of consensus building on that. There are a couple of states that have problems. Jammu and Kashmir also has said that this could lead to a lot of losses in revenue collection, but that's what we're being told. And there's another slab which is much higher, set for Singh goods. What those exact goods will be, we'll let you know in a few moments, but it could typically mean tobacco and other items. But viewers, this would mean a massive reset. And I want to try and go across to Pallavi Ghosh for more on what she's learning as far as outcomes are concerned. So there's 5%, 18% and a 40% for Singh goods. Pallavi, what can you tell us about where various goods are going to be slotted and how much will this actually help the public?
So Rahul, there was earlier 4 slabs. That was 5, there was 12, there was 18 and there were 25. That has been done away with. So now there are going to be only 2 slabs, which is 5 and which is going to be 18. Now in 5 are going to be a large number of consumer articles that I think we are going to get to know this in detail in a short while from now, where the finance minister is going to be briefing us. But the 5% slab is going to be applicable on, for example, oil, ghee, the spectacles, geometry box, pencils, which is seen as an Aam Aadmi kind of material, and that is where the 5% slab comes in. The 18% slabs are going to be on, say, automobiles. It's going to be on mobile phones, your laptops, your LED TVs.